So we're going to begin sitting up on a bolster, and I want you to join the soles of the feet together so the knees splay out. Now, when you join the soles of the feet, we'll add a sandbag if you have a bag of weight. It could be a rice bag, sandbag, but you might need blocks under the knees. You might find, well, I need some blocks to start this out. If you're feeling okay without the blocks and you feel a little bit kind of rocky, a little side to side tilting, perfect. I want you to feel like you're kind of in the mood for kind of a little curiosity here with the hips, with the balance into the pelvis. Okay, blocks are fine under the legs or without. Sand is across the feet, soles of the feet together. Starting with the hands resting on the knees or just below, let your eyes close and just feeling that space behind your heart motioning forward. Feel the arch through the spine. Let your head tilt to the right side so that left side of the neck feels the stretch. Come back center, in breath, ribs expand. And then out breath, leaning your head over towards the left side. So feeling where the movement is in the upper spine. Come back center and shrug your shoulders up and roll them back. And take a few of these shrugging motions. If you feel like including a little bit of rocking motion forward and back, that's certainly interesting, intriguing for loosening up into the shoulders, but you might just let your eyes close and feel, and maybe even you can hear your shoulder noises. You might have a little sound and warm up through the shoulders and thus the neck. So next time you let your shoulders lower down, let your head tilt to the right one more time. Feeling that heat. Come back center, head tilts to the left. Now feeling when your head tilts to that left side, right, that right side of the neck elongate. And then with your chin lifting up, turn to your right and bring your left hand to that right knee. Your right hand could just touch to the bolster, or you can always push the hand down, just drop it down to the floor. But feeling where the neck, the coordination of neck into ribs, into obliques, a very intriguing area in the core to bring some circulation throughout. And now feeling when you're holding on to that knee, try to lift up from behind the heart, arching. And then just turn to the other side, to the left side. So we're going to reach the right hand for that left knee. And as you turn, you might let your left hand be down to the bolster, down to the floor. I mean, heck, if you have a block back there, you can use that. But just feeling the rotation. Or maybe the second side, the rotation is kind of vague. Right? The feeling where you turn through that kind of inner spinning motion. You relax the grip on the knee and come to a forward bend. So you're going to hinge at the hips, let's hope. You're going to reach down. Some of us might have a sandbag on the feet, continuing to stretch into the ankles. Elbows touch down, possibly. Okay, but instead of grasping onto your feet, I want you to get a feel of that reach of your back, the stretch into the inner leg and the hip. And if your head tilts down, so be it, but feeling the back space, breathing. Okay, see if you can stay here for a few more breaths before we lower back. So you have a feel of your back space sensation with your breath. This could be about a little bit on the ankles, I have to admit. Continuing with the sand. So expanding, in breath, exhale, using that exhale to help transport you forwards. I know that's a thought, usually not an actual experience that I go that far down towards my feet. But as we develop the story of awareness in the back space, let's touch the back space a bit. So as you come on up, sand goes off to the side. Since we're going to be lowering back into horizontal chest opener, you might even leave the sand right up to the bolster because you're going to drag it across. And then take a block, low setting, right in front of the bolster. It is right against it. There's no space between the block and the bolster. And then scoot yourself down onto that block. If you're close to the wall, it looks like I might be hitting a wall here. I'm going to move back, so as I lower back, I have my tailbone on that block. Okay, the wall actually is kind of a gift on this one to help stretch out the legs. And as I release back, head on the blankets, maybe one, maybe two. Two might feel a little too much support, but why not give yourself some support in the beginning? And then we take the sand and we place it either across the ribs or across the thigh lids. Choice one, choice two. With that reach, if you have two sandbags, you can have one on each. I think that this reach in the hips might be welcome in this part of the class. We've already started with a little movement in the back. So it might be surprising if you open out the arms out to a reach straight out to the sides, softening through the elbows, and then just feel the full length of the front body, right? Noticing what muscles. You might even feel mostly pelvis and torso. That's where I have kind of the nerve sensation of reaching. But the bones in the lower legs might have some attention as well. Okay. And the word attention has kind of the idea of tension. So feel what you can do to open and then surrender. Okay, one blanket, two blanket, you might be going down to one if it feels like your throat can lengthen. And as the arms relax open, thus the chest. Now, if you have a modification of this, there's some other poses that you could do if this feels too much into your back musculature. But you can also bend your knees and be in the shape to open up the chest without the legs straight. So let's layer a few more kind of movements, weaving the ribs to expand and relax. Stay attentive to the body's reaction to the breath. Relaxing your mouth so you can breathe through your nose. Of course, however you have to breathe is okay. If you start breathing through the mouth, perfect. But possibly work with breathing through nose to feel the ribs move. And if you have the legs extending, I want you to start to walk them in, even if there's sand at the top. Right, that's an area we want some weight bearing, right? At the femur, at the top, this is an important area, and the neck, right, of the hip here. So feeling when you have that length in the back, I find this really curious how the back is arching. Move a blanket away if you haven't already, but you do want one blanket under your head. Okay, so if you already got rid of one, don't get rid of the other. Have a blanket under the back of your skull, not your neck. You're going to move any sand temporarily off to the side. I'm going to put mine off to the side because my bolster needs to be kind of moved around, right? I don't want to put it on the bolster. And I'm just going to push into my feet and then draw back. So the back of my pelvis is on the bolster, right at the center-ish. So I can feel my rear kind of almost hanging off the other side. So I'm going to push back, and then as I lift up my feet, you might have to sort out things, right? Your shirt, if things feel a little bit snug around your neck, get comfortable. And then as you're here, see if you can just find that reach with the knees pointing up and get a ball. Okay. Again, you might have to wiggle around. If you feel like a faint sensation of the block, just scoot your bolster down. Okay. It's okay to feel that. Generally, I teach this, push the bolster down, but sometimes it's okay to push back onto it. Although I just found out that changes your whole clothing arrangement, doesn't it? I don't know if that's the best cue. Okay, so ball, you just find out why I'm doing this. Center of the knees. Let's go into elevated reclining twist. So arms open, knees go side to side. Feel how it kicks up the hip, each side. Yeah, like a kicked hip. This is the kicked hip variety. So as we go side to side, you're squeezing into the ball. Each time you drop over to the side, try that. So when I drop over, I squeeze the ball side to side. Okay, we're not measuring how much you're squeezing the ball, but you can feel when you go center, you relax the squeeze, and then you go to the side and you squeeze a little bit. You can just use gravity to help that happen, right? When I lean over, there's already some pressure intended because there's something between the knees that you push into. Okay, now go to the right side. Okay, relax the grip on the ball. It just naturally, however you have to attend to keeping it center of the knees. Let the left arm stretch straight out from the center line of the sternum, so it's going to reach a little bit higher than the lower armpit area. Just swing it back a little. If the blanket's in the way, move that. That's the reason why sometimes having the blankets lengthwise can be nice. You have no clutter there. And then feeling where the waist stretches as the obliques stretch. External, internal, this is a nice one. Now, I happen to have something over here on the right side that I'm touching onto, my sandbag. Things that could help out would be like the block, but we're going to come back center. So you're using a lot of core muscles. It might be that you're kind of holding a bit as you bring the knees to the left side. Okay, they're not going to be perfectly stacked knees because of the pelvis and all these things that we have. Lucky. So when we squeeze maybe a little bit, feeling the response into your balance, right? Right arm stretches out. The blanket's in the way, just move it. And feeling where the ribs motion, even when you're in a held position. Okay, now squeeze the ball, come back and center. Bring the knees to the chest, take the ball out, and then let's start to set ourselves into a brain flow. Let's start with just the attention to where is your pelvis on the bolster. You're centered, right? You feel that strong arch in the lumbar, okay, which is right above supporting the pelvis. And then when I have the belt, I'm just going to scoop up both feet to start so I can kind of feel into my leg awareness. Yeah, usually we connect to our legs by stepping into our feet, right? That's kind of a normal bodily experience, I suppose. That's how we use them to move around. So let's use the legs to move the blood back towards the heart. Let's spend some time for some happy heart. Okay. So the feet could turn out, they could turn in. It doesn't really matter that much when we're focusing on the vascular support to the heart and the organs, right? Reverse the flow, liver, spleen, all the things here, the important guys here, guys or girls, organs. So when you have that arch through the spine, feel where the knees bend and they point outwards, reach up to the belt, and keep the feet in a wide reach. So I'm going to pull on the belt, and if it's too little of a loop, you can always loosen it up. And as you hold onto one part of the belt, your feet are reaching out. They could still be turning in a little bit, but the feet are reaching out. whether they're turned in or turned out. Okay, so this wakes up the legs, they kind of contract. And then as you pull firm, you're gonna pull the belt towards your chest. Slide the feet together. Okay, hopefully you got a loop here. Okay, this might be plenty, and it's probably going to be better than you think when you take a leg out. Okay, when a leg goes down, it's gonna be like, oh, that's long enough. Okay, now I don't know how long your loop is, but how big it is. So you're gonna take your belt loop around the back of your head. If you don't like that experience, you can hold the belt with your hands so the palms are together and the belt's around between the thumb and the index at that web space, and stretch the arms back. Okay. Now, finding the float position. So leg is up. Sand, where is it? Get a hold of it and place it on the top of that left thigh. Okay. You can start with just the kind of the layer of the hip and that bone, and feeling as it moves down to muscle, spend the energy on the connection to the bones, right? That's like, okay, that's a way in. It's like, okay, I can feel my bones here. Then there's muscle, right? That's pathway down to my knee. So coordinate the right leg up. The left leg is relaxing. I just love having the block under mine. It's kind of half on each side, so I can feel just the right amount of block touch. I know some people just get rid of their block by the time they move back, but I just leave it as it is. So the back line of that right leg is extending and circulating, and your head leans back into the belt, and your arms can be open. Okay, they can be in goalpost position. You're probably not touching your blanket at this point, but you might. Some people lean all the way back and just kind of hover over the blanket. You can kind of feel it there. I like to be a little bit above the blanket for today. This feels better. My belt's hooked into the center of my foot. That feels nice. And as the spine receives the stretch all the way at the top, give yourself some traction in the neck. Breathing. Yeah, you might not feel any big openings, like suddenly the hamstring is just, the gates opened and it doesn't feel like a stretch. You want to feel something. There's sensation. And that's where hopefully you can bring your focus to right now. The sensation at the back line of the right leg. You might be trying to push your foot a little bit more into the belt to stretch the neck, but just let your head lean back into the belt. Don't overdo it. Now, the belt is not at your neck, right? It's at the back of your skull, at the occiput. So that shelf at the back of your head, maybe a little above it, it kind of curls in. It conforms to it. It doesn't curl, it conforms to the roundness of the skull. Okay, now feeling the right knee bending. Now, if I bend my knee, my head lowers back, like poop. My head's on the blanket now. Okay, so when I switch sides, I'm gonna let my head be on the blanket and just see what happens, because you know what? The blanket sort of holds your belt in place, just like your hands would hold the belt. So if you're feeling like I want to do that, but it's a little much, you can loosen up the belt. And then taking the sand. Now, if you're using your hands to hold the belt throughout this, you can just change the foot that's up in the belt pretty easily. Now, when I switcheroo, this is definitely a good tactic to work on leg flexibility, is this pose. When I shifteroo, I got my left foot up now, and my sandbag goes to the top of that right thigh. Yeah, I'm focusing more on the hip bone. Some of you might focus more on the muscle stretch, like push it downwards, like even turn it. I see some people use the sand and it's like across. Yeah, it's not straight down. They like that better. Some of us push it so it's kind of curved. on the hip and the inner leg. And as I let my head lean back into the belt, yeah, it's fun to go from when we have the knee bending, which means you can play with that right now, just bending, extending. But feel when you can elongate through the back line of the left leg, arms opening out. Relax your breath. Just feel where the hip is stretching. Can you feel the front of that right thigh, the front of the hip, and then feel that right side of the abdominals. Great stretch for that area. And it's pretty subtle in some way into the psoas, but it certainly is tuning in. Diaphragmatic motion, of course. Feel the core breath. Okay, now some zones of interest here in the hip might be already kind of waking up, like it's just holding the energy for the back line of the left leg and just the front of the right here, right? We did opposite. So when you start to take it across to the other zones of the leg, let's still kind of reinforce that we've got the hamstring extending, right? It's a nice reach through the back line of the leg. It's kind of doing everything, right? You're doing extending, you're flexing, you're doing a little bit of everything. But as you bend the left knee, let your head lower back and move the sand. Just drop it to the side, bring your hands inside the belt. And I kind of like this variation with the knee bend, the head back on the blanket. It's kind of an epiphany for me today. All right, so stretch your arms back and then hold onto the belt with your right hand and cross the left leg to the right. And as you shift, your right leg can bend, right? Don't feel like you've got to hold it straight. The bottom leg, you can bend it so it kind of curls in, foot towards the bolster, not touching it. But feeling where the emphasis here is on the side band of the left thigh, okay? And where there's motion, encourage that breath. So sometimes it can be a nearly intense sensation. I don't want to say sharp, but for some of us, it could feel like it really goes right up into the hip socket. So feel a little bend into the left knee. Feel the belly area towards the ceiling. So you're in a revolved core position. We're going to do two of these today, one in the beginning and one at the end. So nice whole body treatment. Now, when you bend through that left knee, feel if you can just sneak the right leg up into the belt, sneaky. And then as the left leg lowers down, we can cross the right leg over to the left. Okay? So feeling when you're reaching across the shoulder on that right side rolls down. If it's already touching, perfect. I imagine some of us use a blanket there. Ideally, you want to give more space, even if it's like a half an inch, or it's not going to amount to that much space without the blanket, but it is going to help you open up the chest and the collarbones a little more, the upper ribs, if you don't have a blanket under your shoulder, just under your head. Breathing. Okay, now you kind of notice the side of the right thigh stretching. We're going to start to continue with that with side sage. Okay, so bending through the knee, just take your belt off your foot, and you might do a little leg tantrum. You might bring your knees to your chest. That feels like the right move for me right now. Just knees in, belt to the side. And the back muscles, right, have this convenient way of relaxing, right? Because you got the bolster kind of lifting you up and back. Now, how can you kind of roll to the left side? Okay, you're kind of rolling into your hip bones, and you're going to carefully roll your hips and then come down the bolster stream. Okay. All right, let's take our bolster. It's just going to stay the way it is. You don't really have to change the bolster much, do you? Let's get set up for side stage. How about that? So you got a block. You probably need it. Get your blanket stacked up. Now, one thing we've done that I see about practicing for a while is we have all these different ways of using our blankies and stuff. So what you might do is turn your blankets lengthwise, and or you can have them this way. You choose. What's the difference if they were this way? Well, you might not use your block. You might go, okay, this is nice. I can just lean in and put my hand on the blanket, or one block, and that feels like it's the best. It just gives you a little bit more height with the block, doesn't it? Kind of like this. If you end up going down to one blanket when you have them horizontal, like you always get rid of one, maybe this isn't the right way to go. So you decide blankets length, blankets across, and then I'm going to add my block on top. I'm going to have my hip next to the bolster and my ball under the right knee. Yeah, I know the ball is like 50-50 people use it. Okay, stand on the outer hip. Now what we had the leg crossing over. At the last pose we did was the leg was across and we're holding with the belt. So some of that fades away really fast. It's like, oh, we get out of the shape and the feeling's gone. So move the right leg back so you can still get this different order of reach with the leg. It's a little more calm. Okay, then holding the foot with the belt and pulling it across. It's like, oh, it's a nice way to stretch out my side of my leg without stressing it out. So you got your head on your blanket, however you want to stack them, it's up to you. And your right arm is reaching maybe to a block. Maybe you don't want to bother with the block and you want to open up the chest. You choose. But feel where the hip kind of roams. Like I feel when I'm in this position, my hip drops back a little bit. I'm stretching the front line here of my hip. Okay, that's okay. We don't want to be dropping back and contorting the knee. That's not what we're into. So feel it for the hip's sake of stretching that. Like this is the stretcher, not my knee. Now, as you settle your head into the blankets, feeling the neck relax. And with the left arm close to the bolster. This is a nice way to sneak in a stretch to the left arm that you don't really feel. It's actually stretching, but it might feel like, oh, just resting arm. So with the waist extending and your breath. Relax the energy of your breath so it's comforting. Okay, now just noticing if the arm reach feels like an equal energy with the right hip. They're different sensations. The joint structure has some interesting similarities, but you know, the reality is how you move them around is just not the same during the day, not exactly how you're mobilizing there. So at this moment, feel the navel center, feel back and downwards towards the back of the pelvis, the tailbone. Relax the pelvis like it's not scooping under, it's not motioning, it's not trying to fling back too much. You're like right at neutral, like happy pelvis. Okay, not too much effort, just feeling it. Find the way it contributes to these ranges, right? It's in the middle of it all. It's like the center of gravity. So it's an important place that you can feel that you have abilities to relax it and to move out of it. Most of us tighten it a lot. So See if you can work with that casual reach away from the pelvi. Perfect. And then let your head relax. This is the part I have a challenge with, is truly letting the weight of my head go. I try to look around. I look with my eyes at something, and that tightens the neck. I mean, there's a reason to relax your eyes, connecting to those areas that you don't think are affecting your neck, but maybe it is. Okay, open the chest, roll maybe on the back of your head. My shoulder doesn't like that too much. I'm just going to bend my elbow. Perfect. And then if I roll a little bit back, now here's the challenge. If your blanket's lengthwise, right, you might fall off your blanket. There's always something, right? There's no perfect propping. Okay. And then with the sand. Okay. Now, make the pathway easy with motion in the front. So I'm just going to turn. All right. I'm going to take my block away for right now. I'm going to turn my blankets across. If you already have them across, you're ahead of us. Okay, bolster on top, fall away. Okay, here we go. Now, have your props as stacked enough that you can stretch out your back and your chest. So here's what I'm going to try for. I'm going to have my block here under my forehead because I don't want to overdo it here with my neck. So I'm going to bring my forehead to the block. It is kind of funny feeling. Stretch my arms. Now, if you decide I don't want that block, that's just not good for me, you can lower the block to the second setting and feel if that's appropriate. That feels probably better for me. Okay. So my back is stretching. I'm going to wiggle my hips a bit. Yeah, you have to come into your practice like it's a new day. You don't know, last time you did this, maybe you would use different props. So when you're stretching out your back, feel the sensation of the breath in your upper back. If it's just a lot on your shoulders, what would you do? You get closer to the bolster, right? If I move a little bit further back, it's a little more stretch. Okay, you get to decide. Okay. Now with the feet, maybe the toes under. Okay, see if you can translate this into hands on the floor, okay? Toes under, lifting the knees, and stretching back into downward dog. So you've got your heels up on the wall maybe. That makes a big difference. Now, if you feel like you come back to downward dog and it's just a misery in your wrists, I like to use the blocks under my hands at the lowest setting. I do feel like that helps my wrists. That's at least what it's taught to do. Like this is for wrists. Not everyone's going to agree. There's always going to be someone that'll be, that doesn't, still it's pressure. So other things you can do is lift up with your elbows on the ground. It's temporary. We'll come out of it in a few moments. Okay. All right. Now, bring your feet away from the wall and walk your hands back to your feet so your rear is at the wall. Right? This is key. So if you're too close to the wall, you're going to take a somersault. We don't want that. So if you're too close, walk your feet a little bit away, and then feel where your rear touches to the wall. You can get as close to the wall as you want. That's more of a stretch. And then feel how the ribs move down to the legs. The more bend I have in my knees, I think it's just a little bit more comforting for my back. Okay, there's no reason you've got to exert yourself and compete on this one with yourself. Find a way to ease your back muscles, hold your elbows, and just let that spine feel that enhancement of circulation to the top of it, right? This is a pretty challenged area at the very top, right? It's holding it all up. It's holding your head. So let go. You can let go of your elbows. You don't have to hold them. Just surrender into that sensation in the back. Feel if you move your head a little side to side. If you tend to control that movement, like you're tightening up at the neck, see if you can let that be just really heavy. Then you can feel the face relax, right? The skin cells of the face kind of Soften up. Feels nice for the face. Take another couple breaths here before we come out. Feel that you bend the knees. Again, let your head go. Okay, now you can feel how the torso, right, is extending when we walk our hands forward. Okay, now how you move forward is to walk your hands out in front, which I mean out, so they have to go out to the sides, your feet back. Okay, now before our second side sage, let's take our blocks off to the side if you're using those. Turn your bolster lengthwise. Push it away so you don't kick the wall with your feet here too much. It does feel nice to touch the wall with your feet though. And then stretch the torso forward, elongate into tummy time, and let the rib cage motion down lengthwise. All right, so we're not focusing on the rib chamber moving around right now. We're focusing on length there. So if your feet are pushed against the wall, you might like this exertion for the torso reaching. One of my favorites to add here is the ball. I like to put the ball at the base here at the xiphoid. So if you find the sternum up and you just draw down the ball, it really fits here well. It doesn't fit up here very well. So I'll put that on the bolster. It even feels better on the floor to do this. And just to work on this core exploration, the arch. A really fun way to work on your core. And you can even just lean into it and put your elbows down. It's kind of like feels like a waterbed or something on the rib cage because it jostles the ribs, but a nice way to spark up some energy into your ribs. Okay, right at that intersection. Okay, some of us are not fans of the ball here, I know. It is a little bit awkward, but it's a good exercise to get some stim into that core area that's kind of sleepy from lack of mobility in the core from walking forward. Just our posture. So feeling the elbows, I just have mine out so I can stretch out my center. Okay, let your knees relax down if they're up. They might be pushing to lift if your feet are at the wall, or if they're not, no big deal. You can have the feet and the knees on the ground the whole time. But if you notice when your feet are pushing something, even if they're just on the floor, toes under, pushing back, it does feel different in my back. So if I have my knees slack and I try to lift up my front, this doesn't feel as good as when my legs extend. I feel like I have some energy pushing back. You might disagree. Okay, so lower down through the knees. Bring your hands besides the bolster under the shoulders. Lift up through your chin. Bring your elbows by your sides and come back through table. Round the back into cat, chin to chest. Keep that curling cat pose. Walk your hands back. In breath, arch the spine, hips stretch back, chest forward. Exhale, hollow through the belly. You can even make that breath loud. In breath. It could be the growling cat. And then back into rounding. Okay, now come back to table. Turn your bolster across the mat. And we'll come into side sage on the right hip. Okay, so when we lean to that right, we kind of know the practice setup here, but when you're leaning into your right hip, always careful with the knees. I mean, I know we don't plan to twist anything in the knee, but sometimes little fast movements, these things can happen. So go slow. Okay, I think I learned last time that the whole blanket thing lengthwise, I almost fell off it with my head. I almost rolled my head off. That would have been uncomfortable to hit that on the floor. So I'm going to turn it this way this time and see how it goes. So I still have 2 blankets stacked. It could be straight, lengthwise, or turned. Ball under left knee option. Some of you work just fine with your legs stretching back. Yeah, I don't think my knee likes that, so I'll go there. Then stand on the hip. And yes, maybe you've done this pose before. Maybe you've lived in your body a while, but take the time to lean into it And then add what you might. If you use 2 blocks overhead, use 2. If you use 1 or none, maybe you just let your arm kind of randomly reach. But the places of interest here for me is this right hip is kind of pressing up against the bolster. It's not sitting on it, but it's right at the edge. And then the left side elongating with your left arm reaching. Let your head relax to that right side. And then just, you're back into the side stage. You're on a different side. Feel what the quality of awareness is in your hip, the weight of your head. And one side you might find relaxing your head is even more important than the other. It might be a given for me on this side. It's a little easier for my head to just drop. And it might be because you sleep on that side more. So you're used to that dropping into the neck. And as the spine stretches, just receive your breath. Just come into that feeling of the armpit chest stretching. If it's just a little tense in there in the chest area, maybe that area is sensitive to this reach, this directional reach straight back. You might decide to move your arm open and bend your elbow. Yeah, if it's kind of pinched in there in the shoulder, and this one is a nice focus, especially if seated twists with your arm and shoulder zone feels like it just tightens up and grips and feels pinched. This is a good one to work on, right? You could just move your shoulder around here. Right? You could just let your elbow bend. Your hand could even touch your shoulder and circling. There's definitely some other things you can do if your shoulder is sensitive in other poses. If this one's easy for your shoulder. Got that kind of popped out. That felt good. All right, so when you're reaching with your torso, also feeling where the pelvis is leaning. So there's nothing wrong with you putting more weight in the right hip and the pelvis extending straight down. No, nothing wrong with that. But be careful if you're rolling back excessively, because you could feel that some of us in the knee, we don't want that. Some of us, it feels the lower back pulling. So use the sand to make you give you a deeper stretch into your lungs. Find that it's more for the respiratory. I don't want you to feel like it's pulling your back out, right? So use it for traction in the right way. If you need to bring it higher so the back feels more comfortable, that could be helpful. So you don't push back and down in your hip as much. Last few moments here. Nice work. Breathe again. Okay, now you can feel how the left side is elongating. We're going to continue with that. I'm trying to keep this each cycle. We were on our inversion, then we went to the leg, and went to the side. We're going back into this on this side. So we're going to go to sitting. So this left side's going to be starting to be worked first. Okay, so move the sand away to the left. Roll to the right so your rib cage kind of rotates. Use your bolster. All right. And then as you come up, take your time. Feel first the bit of bend into the back waist here. Okay, in your hip, and then come on up to sit. All right. Get a blanket stack behind you. We are going to eventually go to pigeon pose. So I want you to have your blankets close in to the bolster. Probably no block back here. But some of you, when you do pigeon, go down to one blanket, I think. So just when we get there, just know you can toss a blanket away. All right, so extend the right leg out, bend the left leg, bring the left foot towards the right, I say towards because it might not touch. Okay. Something under your left knee. If you're really mobile and this knee touches down and you kind of like that stretch through the leg, then don't put anything under the knee. But if your knee is sometimes sensitive, I would just put a ball. Okay, ball, a blanket. A block might be a little too harsh, because it does kind of jab in. So you can decide ball, blanket, or maybe block. And then sand on the upper left thigh. So it's up holding the hip. Okay. Now I'm going to reach for my belt. It's far away. And we're going to go ahead and let's loop it up. So you're going to make a little itty bitty loop. Little one. Okay, that's maybe too little, but you don't want to worry your foot. So you're going to scoop up your right foot with the loop, the belt loop, and bring the belt behind your right hip, behind it, to the back, Okay. So my belt's now really long. This is the benefit of having a loop. And I'm going to turn to the left and bring my left hand back to hold onto the belt, reach it, and then bring the right hand to the left knee. Okay. So this was the side we were just in side sage, reaching. So now as I rotate, I hold onto my knee with the right hand, and then I just kind of find how far back do I want to move my left hand on the belt. So of course you could keep moving your arm back and bring your hand closer down towards that. I don't think you're going to hold your right foot with your left hand, but you get the idea. You turn. So, reach. I'm going to slide my hand out on the belt and feel if I can span the collarbone here, clavicle. This kind of feels nice to stretch versus trying to get the flexibility in the bicep tendon. So I want you to be a little careful here. So if it sparks up some sensation, back off, right? You can lower your hand to your blanket, still keep a hold of the belt, and then just feeling where the neck moves right. Maybe it'll go left. Definitely goes right. These are really good ones to move through the neck, especially turning right with your head when your left shoulder moves to the left and back. Okay. So now reach for the belt with your right hand and hold, bend your right elbow so you bicep curl, right? You do a little bicep curl. As you pull, careful with the knee. Like if your right knee's jamming down, put a blanket under it, put a block under it. We don't want to hyperextend. If you feel like you can do a little micro bend with the right knee, do that. Bend the right elbow and stretch the left arm either over the left side of the face or behind your back. This is my fave. I'll just put it behind my back. So the top of my hand just nudges in towards my sacrum so I can feel the curve there. And as I pull with my right hand, I can turn my head down to the right. Because my head's been turning this way for the last two poses now. So I'm just going to let my jaw relax down towards the right leg. And breathe. Feel where the reach is. Less is more on this one. Just feel the beginning of that extension here out of the side. And now relax your grip on the belt. See if you can come up leading with the crown of your head. Okay. Now slide the right foot in. The belt might just come off. You might have to actually assist it. And you're going to move the ball from the left leg. Okay, if you have the ball. We're going to take a full spinal twist, okay? A full spinal. Okay, now if my left leg's got sand on it, my focus is to get my right foot to the other side of the left leg and then twist right. Now I know this isn't for everybody, so some of us might use a block in front of our left shin, put our foot on the block like that. Okay, that feels kind of nice in my back. I like that. So if you want to go for that versus your foot on the other side of the left leg, that's perfect. You can kind of bring your left leg into the midline though, so that you can fit your right foot on the other side. Okay, now when you turn, go slow. Yeah, especially as we get older, right? It's not like you want to suddenly push your elbow and then, create that end range, or in other words, use leverage to get your twist. So when we turn, we want to use breath to get the twist. Turn to the right. Okay, left elbow to that right leg, maybe. Maybe it's not for you. But when you're pressing with the left arm, lift up at the chest. Could be to the right, it could be forward. And just really feel that squeeze into the organs. Right, into the organs, right? You can definitely feel like you're moving from your organs here. Again, squished inwards, pressing with the abdominals. All that stuff is there for a reason. Okay, now, as you come back center, what a perfect time to go to pigeon pose, right? All that turn, left leg is awake. So let's move our blocks aside. If you got them, sand goes off to the side. You can keep 2 blankets. Move your belt. I'm going to keep 2. I actually kind of like 2 sometimes, but I know it's less of a stretch probably. So I'm okay with kind of a moderate stretch. So when I lean down with my elbows on the ground, this is where I feel the stretch when I go all the way down with my arms. Okay, this is where I receive it in the hip. Now, if I don't have that many blankets, I can use no blankets under my knee. Then you're going to feel, you can tell if this top part is down, the arms, if your leg behind you is further down, probably more stretched too. Okay, but so you choose. Now, if you decide I can't do pigeon, that's not going to work today, here's your modification. Okay, you take a seat, you got your block in front of your right shin way forward, and then you lean forward. Right? Perfect. You can use a ball under the right knee. You can kind of hold that left knee so it just feels like the right amount of tone. Okay? Not that the knee needs any tone. Don't think that's an area we focus too much on that at all. But when you lower down, let the back leg, those of us in pigeon, the back leg bends. Kind of feel when you hinge at the knee, and when you feel the foot draw towards you, you might just move it a little, some small movement side to side. Don't make it a big movement for your knee joint, just small, tiny. And then move your foot towards your rear. I prefer to have my legs straight down. Up to you. All right, take a few more moments in sleeping pigeon. Breathe across the back. Okay, now whether you're seated upright with your foot on a block or you're leaning into the left hip, we're all focusing left side. So when we come on up, walk your hands back. See if you can feel where that arch is through your spine, whichever direction you are, pigeon or seated, forward fold. And then let the weight lean into your left hip. Bring your right leg around. Left leg stretches out. Oh, the back of the left knee is happy. So part of that is that squeeze and soak right into the muscles. So it's a nice thing to do. We do that with the organs in the practice. We do that with muscles as well. Stand on the right thigh ball, maybe. Right foot doesn't have to go all the way over to your left thigh. You certainly could use that choice of movement with the knee joint, but you can tell that if your foot's a little bit away from the left thigh, sometimes I teach this actually with a block between the foot and the thigh. I sometimes do that. So we're not doing that today because we didn't do it last side, but if you do feel like your knee doesn't like that direction, you just kind of feel through it like, do I want my foot close? Do I want it away? It's my foot to the side, huh? Do I want to ball under this knee? Play with it. Okay, I think I do. Okay, so block or blanket under the right knee, and then I get my belt. I got my little loop. Okay, so reach down to your foot. You might have to bend your knee a bit to get that. Yeah, don't pull your hamstring to get that. And then the belt goes behind you. That's the key. It goes back, back, back. Right hand holds. Now, feeling not just arm direction, but the movement of your head. Or tilting. And after you go, oh, whoa, 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 snagging on my neck. So go slow. There's amazing muscles up here, all the way up onto the neck. I mean, whoa. Right, spend energy on those. That could be a 15-minute class on just working on the neck. That might be a good little video, huh? So just working on the neck. So your head leans to the left, or it turns. Or you don't do anything with movement of the head that's specific. You just have a hold of your belt and your emphasis is turning to the right. Right, it's like you're holding the remote here in your body. You're turning. And you know what? One side might be more clenched up in the shoulder than the other. And it might be very clear, like, oh, man, this shoulder just feels different world in there. So you might even just do the direction, move the way we're moving, and just let it be. Even if it's different, just go, okay, as long as it doesn't hurt, okay, I'll accept what's going on. Hold on to the right leg with the left hand. Maybe you just let your head move. Maybe you tilt your head towards the shoulder. Okay. Reach for the belt with your left hand. There we go. It's there. Trace it. And then as you trace the feel, you're going to hold onto the belt with your left hand. The right arm lets go of the belt, the right hand. Now it could stay with the belt. Like I like this version a lot, just holding the belt with both hands. I just like how that feels in my tricep. It's pretty cool feeling. And the left foot might turn out. You don't want it to turn out to the left. You want to keep it pushing through the heel. Right arm reaches out. Second, it goes up. Now, if I go up and it feels like it tightens my shoulder again, I'm going to go back out and relax my hand to my back. This side, this shoulder's tighter. I can feel all different areas are more gripped up on my right. It's my dominant, side. So what a surprise. So do it what feels like, oh, this is going to help me out. Maybe your arm goes over your head and you just think, oh, I can do that. I can stretch my torso. I love it. All up to you. I still feel my torso stretch when I hold the belt with my left hand and my right arm is behind my back. I still feel the waist stretch. Feels great. Okay, now what about your breath? Hope that's happening. Just feeling the movement in the ribs, back space. Okay, now we come on up. We have to keep holding the belt so we don't pull anything in our back. What's kind of funny though is you want to pull with your hand, not give too much slack, so you keep that tone in the back as you come up. Okay, it's just like any project in architecture. So we're going to keep that leg to move across. So I'm going to cross it over the right thigh. Okay, so this is up to you. If you have your sand already on the right thigh, just leave it. Your left leg crosses. You turn to the left. Okay, some of us block underfoot. Do I do the same move? Yeah. And you don't have to work on end range, right? If you feel like that leverage idea is just not feeling good on the joints, that means pushing and, anticipate more. Just accept when you hold onto the knee, lift up the heart, and then feel what's good. We know good stuff is with little twists, gentle. Okay, good for the organ. So if I push and I rotate, feel where the heart lifts. full motion with the breath. And that just means I get a full breath. What would that be? Maybe 3 to 4 counts. That might be a long breath for some of us. It does feel a little long for me on the twist. Now notice when you come out of the twist, it's a little easier to breathe. It's a good one for all things, organs, lungs. Twists are so good. Okay, take your sand off and make sure there's no belt. It doesn't really matter if there's a belt on your blanket, huh? Bring the left leg back. Yeah. If you decide, I don't want to do this version on my hip, this doesn't feel right for me, you can come around and still take your seat. So if you were here or here, you just switch and have your right foot on the block, right? And lean forward. Now, should you keep sand on? You could. If you're doing a seated forward fold, you could certainly have a sandbag as well. But that's, entirely up to you as you're leaning forwards. Okay, some people put sandbag on their back. They're right at the sacrum area. They like that a lot. I don't think it's harmful in this pose at all. It might be a lot on a child's pose for you to do that, but it's still, if it feels okay, some people it's okay. Okay, if we're used to this motion, if it's too much to get the sand on, visualize it. That's not a feature yet on our Zoom group after all this time, huh? The wave of sensation of someone putting a sandbag on you. But when you're leaning, what could change is to bend the back leg. And again, if the joints are working and you've got that circulation in them, I would say use it. If it doesn't have any pain, and if the inflammation is like a small amount and it dissipates, great. But if it continues in, back off. Other options. Okay, what'll be nice is we're going to go into our kind of final spinal pathway next. So we've done a lot of side of the leg, side of the waist. Now we're going to do all the front span and the quads. Okay, so when you do lean down to your right hip, the next moment or two, make sure the back foot is down. Walk your hands in towards your right leg. It doesn't have to be right next to it, but close-ish. Feel the arch. This is a good pose for the dynamic in your lower back. Okay, now feeling the chest move a little forwards. And then lean into your right hip. Swing the left leg forward. If you already have your foot on the block, you are ready. Okay. Come on to take a seat, and let's move our seat back off the bolster. How about this? And we'll push our bolster. I think, okay, let's make it so we have a bolster in the front for our feet. Let's go all the way to the wall. If you've got your bolster and a wall space, use the wall for the bolster. This way, if you don't like to use your bolster in bridge pose, you have some space to not use it, right? I'll show you. So we're going to need our blanket at the lowest. It's low. This is probably even too high, according to my teacher, but you don't want a big bulky blanket under your neck for a bridge pose. Bad news. But some people out there have to have our blanket because of their neck. So it's not as if people are bad if they do that. Some of us, there's too much roundness in the back and you can't have no blanket. You're just in agony. So try not to get there if you can. Make the back lower down so it's not rounding right now. That's why just lying on your back and doing poses is so good for you, for your back care. It's just nice stuff. Okay, what's up with your belt? Get your belt. It's in a loop. Yeah, it's already there. Yeah, let's do little. Okay, so head back. I don't know exactly what you're going to do with your props, but you do need a ball, and you might need your sandbag soon. So keep those nearby. Okay. And move your head onto your blanket so it's relaxed, and take your belt around the legs. So you're going to bring the belt, and when I reference below the knee, it's because you're upside down, okay? I know it's not down to your shins. So you're going to tighten it up. You got no block under your pelvis on this one. We'll get there. Okay, so belt around the thighs. Now I'm going to make it pretty, a little bit loose. So it's not as if I've lost all feeling in my legs. It's in the center, kind of right near the thickest part of my thigh. If I feel the back, the thickest spot. It's not quite the thickest, right? It's a little higher, but it's going to be in an area where there might be a little bit of padding. Okay, so feet on bolster. My knees are pushing out a little bit. I'm going to accept that. Okay, that's a new acceptance thing in yoga, I think. Is it's okay to move them out a little bit. No harm going to happen. No force in my knee. All right, so elbows by the sides, like I got little robot arms or T-Rex arms. Okay, so shoulders relax. That means that my shoulders flail out. I'm going to push into my feet, lift my hips up. You can use a bolster or you can go without it. I don't know. I usually do this minus the bolster, but I'm going to try it. The reason why it's nice is you can go higher up on your back. So arms go overhead once you feel comfortable with the movement. Arms go down. I would say try it with both the feet on the floor and the feet on the bolster. I don't know. What do you think? Do you like feet on the floor? I'll try to remember and do a survey at the end. You can type it in at the end. Is it that helpful to go that much higher on the back for massaging the back? One more with the feet down. Doesn't feel that much different. I do like the feet down for the quad stretch though. Okay, so next time or two you come up and down, you are the one who decides whether you're on the soft cushiony bolster on the floor. Complete choice there. But get a block. Where is a block? Lift up, place the block under the pelvis. Now, if you turn your block to the second setting, just be aware you're going to have to get the abdominals to move and to stretch as well. Otherwise, you're going to get cramped up there. So have the block at the height that works for you. Remember, you have two settings that work on this one. Low setting, second setting, middle setting. Yeah, I like to go to the high setting sometimes, but I don't know what the point of it is to strain out my back here. So if you've got your feet on the bolster, try to put them down on the floor for this one. Then you'll get just a little more reach. Now the knees are going to push a little bit out. Don't worry about that. And then relax the tailbone. Okay. Arms out to the side. So I want you to stretch them, down to the side. So shoulders down and in towards the spine. Arms stretched down. I like this one because I can get the belt, the tail of the belt, and then hold on to it, palms towards the ceiling, and roll the shoulders down and in. So I have the belt, right? And as I hold it underneath me, palms open, shoulders down and in, okay? Meaning you have to roll them and move them downwards and then in towards the spine. I think that's pretty neat. I like the belt with this a lot. Not necessarily all for the legs. It's a so-so leg situation, isn't it? Yeah, they may even get a little shaky. So bring your feet up to the bolster. If it's not there already, it could still be there. Hold the belt, if that's possible, not your breath. Okay, now feel the feet push into the bolster or the floor. Lift up the hips so you're in definitely bridge land now, bridge territory. Let go of the belt. Slide the block away. And then as the spine goes down, okay, we're going to roll the glutes. Now, I've played a little bit with this where I have the belt still on and I roll the glutes. So if you haven't done that before, give it a try. So keep the belt on the thighs and go to the left grip. I don't know what you think about it. I don't think I like it that much. I like to have a little bit more freedom with my legs to move, but some of you might like it. I find some people say, oh man, this is so much better with my legs held together. To each his own. Okay. You don't want to feel like you're trapped, right, with the rolling. It's a massage pathway, so I don't want you to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm trapped. My belt's holding my legs. I'm stuck. So feel the freedom of rolling. Now, if you can't really use I'm not going to use the bolster anymore. I'm just going to get on the floor. So my feet pushing and stepping steers the movement around the ball really, right? See if you can kind of use your foot. You're kind of pushing into your foot, then leaning into the ball on the left side and rolling. You can use tennis balls for this one. You don't have to use a squishy ball, but it's a little bit more comfortable probably. Okay, mobilizing across the surface muscle, and then right rear down, take the ball out, move the knees to the left, sneak it into the right rear, and then up you go. Mount up on the ball and glide across the muscle. Move your hips. You gotta move those hips. Okay, now the leg that's connected to the ball, right, that leg you can kick up and just kind of feel how you use the weight of the leg to push down and back into the ball. I'm kind of like using my thigh bone to press down to my hip socket upside down. Just use that inversion. Okay. Now, as you glide across, push, nudge the hip, and then if you need to keep rolling, keep rolling. Okay. Now, as you lower down, hips go left, and then take your bolster. Use your foot, your feet to move it over to the right side of your mat. Slide your sand. And here we go. This feels so good. Right leg relaxes. This leg is just casually bending. I'm not trying to straighten it out. And then left leg swings over to the bolster. Maybe a ball goes between the sacrum and the tailbone. It's pretty much the same space right now as far as this ball. The ball matters, right, when it's in that zone. And then you add your sand. Okay, option. You can have sand on your hip. You can have it across, lengthwise. Careful where if you put it on your knee, though. You don't want to crowd the knee. So possibly higher up. Now, when you're reaching with your left arm out, feel the shoulder rolling down. This is the one opportunity to feel the shoulder roll around and downwards to open up the chest. That's why reclining poses are so good for back, shoulder, joints. Let your head turn to the left if that's comfortable for you, and feel the ribs motion with the breath. Not only ribs, maybe for you it's the belly. That's kind of where I feel the motion is in the belly area with breathing. Now head back in center, moving the ball. And then when you get ready to shift sides, just feeling the knees pointing into each other. So soles of the feet down, on the floor, knees together. If you don't care for the sandbag on your belly, just put it off to the side. Sometimes it doesn't feel comfortable. So bolster moves to the left. Okay, now I'm going to scoot my hips a little to the right. I like this tactic where you put your feet down. Knees can be close together. That's fine, like I mentioned. And then I push into my feet and I lift up my rear and move it to the right. Left leg relaxes, bending, and then the right leg swings over to the bolster. That's a pretty good way to move into your reclining hip crossover or revolved core. If the last side you felt a little jammed up, you couldn't quite get that swing in the hip, this is a good way to get the swing in the hip, right? So sand goes to the side of that right thigh. Ball goes to the back of the pelvis. Let's just call it that. That's a good place to anchor it. And if the sand is a little bit, wishy-washy about staying on you, you might just kind of feel, do I move it higher? Do I turn it? It's another leg, right? It's not the same leg. And there could be other ways that you posture it that you don't see when you're on your back. It's kind of hard to really see your alignment when you're on your back exactly unless you have a mirror. And that might even be kind of distorted, right? So it's about feeling to the ways towards balance. Abdominally, you might find that the movement of the breath, it's going to go through down with the diaphragm motioning to the belly. So you'll feel that's how it makes paves its way to the feeling of everything expanding. So it could feel really deep belly with the breath. Feel that right shoulder, try to roll it down. Maybe your head rolls to the right. That might feel comfortable. Just a couple more poses. So enjoy the last couple poses here. And just feeling where the hip is landing. The left hip, the right hip is open. This is a good 1 to 3 minute pose generally. You don't want to overdo it, right? But you could go a little longer if you want, if you're practicing outside of the session, right? This is a good one to practice. Just try to balance out how much time on each side. So we're going to move the ball. We're going to keep going left. So if I got my sand there, I'm going to first use my hand to move it away. My right hand primarily. And I push the sand downwards. And then I roll left. I bring my right knee up, left knee up, and then come on in. And then take your blanket. Now, at the end, you might want to have an extra blanket for your torso to get warm. So if you have, like, I know a few people use their bolster right against the wall for legs up. I love this for our vascular and lymphatic system, right? It's our best pose that we can do to finish up the practice. So if you don't like to use a bolster, you can use a blanket. Just place a folded blanket or two under your pelvis, and then maybe add like a little pillow or something for under your head. So you don't have to use a full bolster, right? Just know that. If you have a round bolster, you can play with that. You know, that can be kind of fun to do, is have the round bolster, just position it the same way. You might find that's even more comfortable in your back. Be surprised. And then roll to come up. Okay. Maybe I'll purposely do that next time. But for now, I'll use the flat. So you could, again, use 2 blankets, 1 blanket, 1 flat bolster, 1 round bolster. You don't want to use 2 bolsters. That might be too many. And then take a sandbag. So you want to swing the legs upside down. Place your sand either at the belly, there's a few that like that, or the feet, or no sand, you choose. And when you lift up through the legs, which is not how legs live most of the day, right? They don't usually, they love this. This is definitely a happy place for mostly the heart, right? Because it gets that soothing reverse flow of blood back to it. So it doesn't have to work so hard. It can just take a little break. Relaxes the brain as well. Anything that's good for the heart in the yoga series is good for the brain. And part of that's the inversions. Yeah, forward folds, standing forward folds, head back down below heart, or upside down where you can be for some time. So even if your sitting bones don't touch the wall, don't worry about it. It's about that verticality. So, you know, if you get kind of so focused on that, see if you can let that go and just feel where the hips are lifted. And if you still want to work on getting that perfect, that's up to you. But let the spine center and feel not only that the hips have this unusual centerpiece focus, because they're the part of the body that's, that's the kind of the magic zone, right, of gravity. So when they're lifted, I mean, where do you feel your center is now, right? I feel like my center is now towards my heart. And it's a small part of the body. It's so small, but it does feel like it's an important area to relax. It's the rhythm maker of the body. So it is slightly essential to calm it. And then feel how the respiratory muscles work in tandem with the heart. So as you in-breath through the nose, kind of feel that center platform. Maybe it just kind of swells up and it expands with your breath. And then as you exhale, you just relax back. Let your brain rest, arms relaxed. Feel the connection all the way up to the neck. It might feel like it stretches the neck a little bit here. And the cervical vertebrae, it's safe to move it side to side, right? That's safe. But you might actually feel pretty interested in just letting your neck gently and ease stretch out. Relax the face, the jaw. Now the last few focus points here would be breathing in for 3 to 5 breaths, up to you, whatever you feel you can receive with breathing through your nose. Maybe it's more. And then as you exhale, just letting the breath sweep the lungs. Feel that alternating phase of in and out breath. With the weight into your feet, feeling that reinforce the sensation into your hips by moving your feet away from the wall. Even if you don't choose to have sand on the feet, you might notice, okay, I can do a little mild bend of the knees. Just feel that reach to the hip sockets, and it's like you're motioning, you're putting some oil into those hips, right? You're definitely reversing the flow back to the hips, massaging into the hip by having the legs upside down. Usually fluid drops to the base of ourselves, where so much of us is fluid. So it goes to the base where retention happens. So it's nice to bring it back up. Yep, reverse the flow. Only by getting upside down. It's kind of the one way to do this. And then, or get massage, right? What else can you do? So bend your knees. If this blankie on your core is like, oh, you can stay with it. It's a good little massage into the organs here, into the digestive tract. Hold the backs of your legs. Okay. And if that's a challenged area, this is also good. You can use a blanket. Roll it up, though. You can roll it to the base of the belly and swing the legs back. Okay. Now, blanket goes to the side if you want. Hug them in, hug them in, hug them in, hug the legs, and rock a little side to side. And then go to one side and roll. And come on up. Take a moment just to see. Feel the hips move back and down. Feel the hands join to your heart center and just feeling that response of your back muscles coming back up, where they might live the rest of the day, right, in this direction. So feeling it all full of heat and circulation. Let's respond with the breath together. Inhale slow. And with our exhalation, bowing into that space behind your heart. In gratitude, namaste. Thank you. All right. Oh, how did that go? We kind of went along over, huh?